You Need a Candle shirts now available on Teespring. And also be sure to follow us on Instagram to know when we get restocks available for our Etsy store, along with our new collections coming very soon. Hey guys, it's your old pal, CHH here, and today we have made it to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I was extremely excited to read this chapter in Taking Shape to learn about this film. Interesting thing is I didn't realize that they actually cover Halloween 2018, so we can do an episode on that if you guys want. Drop a thumbs up if you want me to do an episode on Halloween 2018 on cool facts that maybe we haven't heard about. There's probably a lot that we have, but maybe the book will have something. But if you want me to dig deep in the book, I'll do my best. So give me a thumbs up if you want that, but I'm really excited to talk about this because I am a fan of this film. Controversial to say the least, but that's neither here or there for this episode. This is facts. So why don't we get right into those? Okay, so the first fact about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 was this. The movie Inside's Julian Maury and Alexandre Bustillo, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing those names, the first draft was going to be a prequel which would have followed Michael's teenage years, so the gap between parts 1 and 2 in Rob Zombie's first movie, because there's 2 acts basically, and the second half was going to deal with what happens at the end of part 1. So the movie was going to be like a mid-cool from part 1, and then a sequel on the second half, which I can understand why the Weinsteins were probably like, nah, because they axed that. They did not want to do that when that was the pitch that was the pitch they originally intended, and the Weinsteins were like, no, we don't want to do that. We just need to do a sequel. No funny business. We don't want any young Michael Myers in this film anymore. Those guys did come very acclaimed because of the success of the movie Inside, which is really good. Alright, so the second fact about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is also going back to Maury and Bustillo. In their original pitch, get ready for this, Laurie was to be found out as the daughter of Sheriff Brackett, making her the offspring of an extramarital affair with Deborah Myers. The irony is, that sounds more Rob Zombie than anything Rob Zombie's done in both of his movies. But that came from those two guys, and again, the Weinsteins were like, I don't think we can do that, or we should do that. So maybe if Rob would have had that idea, he would have gotten the go-ahead to do that, but the fact of the matter is the Weinsteins hated that. They were like, no, we're not doing that. Alright, so the third fact, here we go. Zombie would return to the series when he ran into a guy named Matthew Steen, a Dimension executive who would tell him things were not going good when Rob asked about how things were going. Zombie recounts feeling that he healed from some of the wounds from the studio meddling from part 1 and felt comfortable enough to go back and finish the story from the characters which he felt a little bit of authorship over since they were in his vision. So because time had gone by a little bit, Rob started feeling like he was ready to dip his toes back into that Weinstein Dimension camp. But I think after this experience, he probably was like, I'll never work with Dimension ever again. I don't want to work with the Weinsteins ever again. For better or worse, that again, it's up for you to decide whether you like his films or not. So the fourth fact is this. This was crazy. The day before shooting, Rob found out that a whole 2 weeks was going to be slashed from his filming schedule. Now, they weren't really going into detail as to why, because there's so much mystery behind the making of on this movie because it was so controversial. There's a lot of fighting between the Weinsteins and Rob. So I think, in my estimation, based on what I was reading, they probably wanted to get this movie out a year after the first one in 2008, but because they didn't start shooting until early 2009, I think they wanted to axe 2 weeks so that they can make sure that they had this thing filmed and in the can and ready for that fall. So that's probably why, but because of that, there's a lot of stuff and scenes that Rob had to cut out of the movie. Okay, so here's the fifth fact. Now buckle up for this. This is a bunch of insanity that went on during the production of this. I just included this all in one fact. Things started off horribly rocky. Our entire night's work was lost when airport staff accidentally x-rayed several canisters of film, destroying them. I didn't know x-rays would do that to film, but there you go. The State Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau forcibly shut down filming over accusations of an unsafe work environment. Again, no detail on that in the book, but that's what they said happened. And Bill Moseley quit the film after 1 day without notice. He had to be recast with actor Jeff Daniel Phillips, who was already playing another character. Rob also alleged that some individuals were stealing money from the budget. Now, obviously, the most interesting thing about that whole thing is the Bill Moseley thing. I think the character he probably was going to play was going to be the host of that Halloween party that was wearing the Day of the Dead style makeup on his face, which Jeff Daniel Phillips ended up doing. I'm assuming, because Jeff was so great as the worker at the strip club, that had to have been what Bill was going to do. So I always thought it was weird that Jeff was doing that, but, you know, now I understand why. I'd love to know what happened. I've never heard Bill talk about that, and I've never heard Rob talk about that. Obviously, I doubt it was between those two guys, as they work together again, and they seem to be really close, and Bill has never alluded to any problems with Rob. But again, there's just a lot of mystery with the making of this film. Alright, so the sixth fact about this movie is this. The Loomis character was inspired by Vincent Bugliosi. Again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. The lawyer who famously convicted Charles Manson and went on to sell more than 7 million copies of his book, making him the highest crime-selling author of all time. So it's actually cool to hear that Rob based it off of an actual lawyer person who was profiteering off of being involved with this over-the-top, you know, famous... Well, murder is really not the right word to use with him. I shouldn't get into that, but you know what I mean. So that's who the character was based off of, and I always appreciated that, but again, this video is not about whether I like the film or not, so let's move on. The seventh fact about the White Horse. The White Horse was not originally in the shooting script. Zombie claimed he saw a majestic white horse galloping on the side of the road and thought it would be a cool visual element to add to the film. So here I am thinking that there was this grand scheme and grand plan, when in reality, he saw the horse on the side of the road and thought it looked cool. Take that for what you want, but that's where the origin of the White Horse came from. Okay, so the eighth fact about this, now this is something that probably most of you know, but when I was reading this, I just thought it was worth mentioning, and I wanted to bring it up as one of these facts. In the director's cut, the White Room scene is Laurie dying and basically going into what he sees as the white light, where she's seeing her family come towards her. But in the theatrical cut, she doesn't die, obviously. The significance of the theatrical ending reshoots completely changed the meaning of the White Room scene. So it's her alive in an actual sanitarium, but she's living in her mind in a sense, seeing her family, her mom come towards her in that white padded room. So it's interesting how the footage got used, but when you don't kill Laurie, it completely changed the context of that scene. Rob has gone on to denounce his theatrical cut ending because he felt that it was too predictable that she wouldn't get killed, so he really liked killing her in his cut of the movie. But it was interesting how it changes the complexion and context of that white padded room scene almost 180. Alright, so the ninth fact about this, now this was something that kind of alludes to the insanity of this film. The Weinsteins, in a panic, flew to the set because they weren't getting what they called quote-unquote trailer shots. They then sat Rob down and made him watch a bunch of trailers from horror films that they were making at the time. But this is the kind of stuff that Rob has somewhat talked about, how he was going out of his way to make this film feel totally different and in his own vision and doing what he wanted to do, where the Weinsteins were trying to reel him in more ways than one, and it was so crazy that they had to fly in to say that, hey, we're not getting trailer shots. That's probably just the tip of an iceberg on this, but again, so much mystery, but that's one thing to do. They flew in for that, so I'm assuming they don't do that very often. Okay, so the 10th fact, now this is something I thought was the coolest fact, because I hear this talked about a lot. Some people use this as a criticism, or just commenting on it, but one thing is people say they only use the Halloween theme in the end of the movie. And people have heard, and I can understand why they think this. They think because Rob was trying to make this movie in his own vision and be different, he didn't use it for that reason. But it was interesting in the interview with the film editor that he said this: the Halloween theme not being used until the end was not on purpose. According to the film editor, he and Rob tried it in several places, but it always felt shoehorned or just didn't work right. The only place that they felt it organically fit was at the end, ironically, because they were at the end of the film when they were editing and scoring it. So even though they only got used at the end, that was the only place that they felt it organically worked right there, but they felt that it was shoehorned in other places. So they weren't necessarily trying to not use it on purpose at all. They were trying to, but they just felt that it didn't work in certain places. So that's something for you as the viewer, you can judge whether you agree with that or not. But I always heard people feel that, you know, he didn't do it on purpose, but it was interesting to note that that just wasn't the case. Alright guys, so again, I wish I could find out more craziness about what happened on the set, and probably the angry phone calls and Rob being just horribly mad with the Weinsteins, and the Weinsteins being horribly mad with Rob because they wanted this movie to go one way and Rob was making this own different thing. But a lot of it's just a mystery. Now, the only way we could ever know is to see that making of, which was all filmed but we never saw. And unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever get to see it. But you never know. You never, ever know. So, there it is, guys. That is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, 10 Crazy Facts. Hopefully you learned something new and got something new from this episode. Again, we do have Halloween 2018 and taking shape. If you guys want me to try to make an episode on it, give me a thumbs up and let me know, and I'll go for it. I do appreciate you watching this video. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. To get behind-the-scenes photos, videos, and music, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month.